So here it is, part 3 and the final part of chapter 9, Bholi, from the book Footprints Without Feet. So we in the previous part we read that Bholi was given a welcome treatment in the school by her teacher. Bholi was gaining confidence, and years after years she was getting confidence, and she was developing into a well informed, well educated girl, which her parents hardly knew about her. One fine day, her father brought a proposal of a marriage from a man named Bishambar who lived in a nearby village. But the problem was that Bishambar was around 45 or 50 years old, almost the age of Bholi's father. He already had grown up sons, and the advantageous thing, according to Bholi's mother, about this man was that he was a shopkeeper, he had a house of his own, he had several thousand rupees in the bank, and age didn't matter. When all this conversation was going on, Bholi, who was trying to sleep, the voices fell to her ears and she couldn't help but listening to her parents' conversation. Vishambarnath was a well to do grocer. The thing was finalized, the marriage prospect was finalized, and a message was sent to him. All the preparations were done, and finally, the day of marriage happened. He came with a big party of friends, which we call Barat in our Indian tradition. So he came with a big party of friends and relations with him for the wedding to Bholi's village. A brass band playing a popular tune from an Indian film headed the procession. As you can imagine the picture, as happens in all the barats, so same was happening here, with the bridegroom riding a decorated horse. So the bridegroom happily came to take his prospective wife away. Ramlal was overjoyed to see such pomp and splendor. This is the thinking of the people of those days. Despite knowing the fact that the man didn't at all suit his daughter, yet he was overjoyed to see such pompous and splendor marriage procession. He had never dreamt that his fourth daughter would have such a grand wedding. This was the matter of pride for him that despite being such a simpleton and not so beautiful, Huli was getting married with such pomp and show. And see the downfall of the human tendency. Bholi's elder sisters, who had come for the occasion, were envious of her luck. Why were they envious? Because Bholi is going to such a household, which was a big house, and there were several thousand rupees in the bank. So they were jealous of Bholi getting married to such a man. They were not at all sympathetic that their sister is going to get married to a man almost of the age of her father. Yet they were jealous, yet they were envious because the sister was going to a rich household. So the auspicious moment came, and the priest said, "Bring the bride." Bholi, clad in a red silken bridal dress, was led to the bride's place near the sacred fire, where the seven pious fairas were to be taken around the sacred fire. So she was asked to come and sit there. Before marriage, in Hindu tradition, it happens that the bride and the bridegroom, they put a garland around each other's neck. So similarly, the priest said, "Now this is the time to garland the bride." And one of the friends of Bishambar Nath prompted him. It means he encouraged him to garland the bride. The bridegroom lifted the garland of yellow marigolds. A woman, the one who might have come to attend the wedding, slipped back the silken veil when the dupatta or the cover, which is used to cover the bride's face, which generally we call ghungat in our own language. So that silken veil was slipped back, and Bishambar took a quick glance at Bholi's face. The garland remained poised in his hands. He didn't move further to put the garland round her neck because he saw all those pockmarks on her face. The bride slowly pulled down the veil. Bholi, being a shy girl, she pulled down the veil over her face, but the bridegroom, Vishambarnath, had already seen her. And he whispered to the friend next to him. He said, "Have you seen her? She has pockmarks on her face." He whispered, "Did you see her? She has scars all over her face." So the friend said, "So what? How does it matter? You are not young either. This is also your second marriage, so you should be happy that at least you are getting married." But Bishambarnath said, "Maybe, that's fine, but if I am to marry her, her father must give me 5,000 rupees." So he immediately thought of a plan. If he had to marry this girl with the pockmarks on her face, he would demand 5,000 rupees from her father first, as if she was an object which was displayed to be sold somewhere, and at all, if she was to be bought by somebody, she would be bought at the cost of 5,000 rupees. That too was offered by the seller. Such a pity, such a blight on our customs and our traditions. Ramlal went and placed his turban, his honor, at Bishambar's feet, which generally the turbans, the headgear, they are thought to be an honor for the people. So he went and very dramatically he put his turban at the feet of Bishambar, and he pleaded before him. He said, "Do not humiliate me so. Take 2,000 rupees." And the negotiation started. He said, "Please do not insult me like that. You did not say anything about the dowry. Still, if you want money, I can give you 2,000 rupees." But Bishambar was stuck to his words. He said, "No, 5,000 or we go back. Keep your daughter." So this was the kind of negotiation that was going on. Father was trying to sell his daughter off at 2,000 rupees and the person was trying to buy her at 5,000. Be a little considerate, please. If you go back, I can never show my face in the village. And the father made it a question of his honor that if the Bharat procession, if the marriage procession goes back, how would he show his face in the village? Then Bishambar, taking full lead of the advantage situation, said, "Okay, then out with 5,000. Then I'm ready to get married, but only once you give me 5,000 rupees." Tears streaming down his face, Ramlal went in, opened the safe, and counted out the notes. He placed the bundle at the bridegroom's feet. Ramlal was all crying, yet, in order to save his honor, his reputation, he went inside, opened his safe, counted 5,000 rupees, and put those rupees at the feet of that prospective bridegroom, Bishambar Nath. On Bishambar's greedy face appeared a triumphant smile, as if he finally was victorious in this war. He had gambled and won. He was so happy that finally his trick worked. "Give me the garland," he announced, and this time now he was ready. After getting those 5,000 rupees, he was ready to get married. Once again, the veil was slipped back from the bride's face, but this time her eyes were not downcast. Like the earlier time when Bholi herself had put the veil down, she was not looking downwards. She was not feeling bad, she was not feeling dejected. Rather, she was looking up, looking straight at her prospective husband. Prospective means would be, the one who was still not husband, who probably would be her husband. And in her eyes, there was neither anger nor hate. She was very calm and composed, but she had disrespect for this man called Bishambarnath. Bishambar raised the garland to place it round the bride's neck, but before he could do so, Bholi's hand struck out like a streak of lightning, and the garland was flung into the fire. Bishambar, showing his greatness, was trying to place the garland round Bholi's neck. He was trying to show that he was such a nice man who was Even though the girl was not beautiful, he was ready to get married. But this was more than enough for Bholi. Before he could place the garland around her neck, she struck the garland out with her hand, and the garland went and fell down into the sacred fire. And Bholi said, Pitaji, and her father, mother, sisters, brothers, relations, and neighbors were startled to hear her speak without even the slightest stammer. Can you imagine the pity and the plight of this girl about whom even her family members didn't know that she could speak clearly now, that she was no longer the same stammering bully who couldn't even utter a monosyllabic word clearly. So, this time, without even the slightest of the stammer, she said loudly, Pitaji, and she said, Take back your money. I'm not going to marry this man. And she asked her father to take those 5,000 rupees back because she had decided not to get married to that man. Ramlal was thunderstruck. Ramlal was startled. He was shocked like anything. And the guests began to whisper, So shameless, so ugly, and so shameless. The guests who till now were not uttering anything when the bridegroom was asking for dowry, they mustered all their courage to discourage this girl who was showing some confidence, who was showing some self respect. This is how our society works. And they started calling her shameless, they started calling her ugly, just because she had the guts to stand up for herself and speak for herself. The father said, Bholi, are you crazy? You want to disgrace your family? Have you some regard for our izzat? This is how actually it happens. The father, he tried to emotionally blackmail his daughter, and he said, Have you gone crazy? You don't have any regard for your family. At least have some regard for our izzat. If you would not get married to this man, what would happen to our izzat in the society? Boli said, For the sake of your izzat, I was willing to marry this lame old man, but I will not have such a mean, greedy, and contemptible coward as my husband. I won't, I won't, I won't. And the girl, showing her courageous side of the personality, she said, Pitaji, just for the sake of your izzat, I had given my consent to marry this lame old man. But because this man is very mean, he is very greedy, and he is a very hateful coward, I cannot have him as my husband. So I would never get married to him. And the people around, they started saying, What a shameless girl. We all thought she was a harmless dumb cow. And this is what happens to the girls in our society. If they keep on tolerating everything, what happens to them? They are very sanskari, what we call them. They have the morals, but once they have the guts to say a wrong and right a right, so the people, those who have very orthodox, very conventional mindset, they would start calling them by names. So same happened with Bholi, and the women, the elderly women, they started calling her a shameless girl, and they said, "We thought she's a harmless dumb cow, but she has a voice. She can speak." Polly turned violently on the old woman. She said, Yes, auntie, you are right. You all thought I was a dumb driven cow? That's why you wanted to hand me over to this heartless creature? She said, Yes, auntie, you are right. I am no longer that dumb cow whom you wanted to be slaughtered at the hands of this heartless creature. But now the dumb cow, the stammering fool, is speaking. Do you want to hear more? And when she showed the courage, when she showed the confidence, and she asked those elderly women, You want to hear more from me? Nobody had enough courage, nobody had enough confidence to stand in front of her. So nobody could say anything to her. Vishambarnath, the grocer, he had understood by now that he didn't stand any chance, so he started to go back with his party. The confused bandsman thought this was the end of the ceremony and struck up a closing song. The bandsmen, though the one who were playing the music, they did not know what had gone inside the pandal, so they thought the marriage ceremony was over, And when the bridegroom came back, they thought the ceremony was over, it was the end of the ceremony. So they started playing the closing songs. So this was a very humorous, funny situation that cropped up there. And as far as the father, Ramlal, was concerned, he stood rooted to the ground, his head bowed low with the weight of grief and shame. He was feeling very much grieved and very much ashamed at this courage of his daughter, at this confidence of his daughter. Though the father should have felt happy and quite proud of his daughter that she had the guts to stand for her, he was feeling grieved and shameful. The flames of sacred fire slowly died down. Everyone was gone. Ramlal turned to Bholi and said, "But what about you? No one will ever marry you now. What shall we do with you?" Ramlal again was thinking about her getting married and said, "Now what would happen to you? Nobody is going to get married to you. What can we do with you now?" And Sulekha, see, the writer knowingly at the first time, in the very first paragraph, the writer told us that her name was Sulekha, and now in the last paragraph, the writer has taken her name again, and Sulekha said in a voice that was calm and steady. She was very calm, she was very stable, there was no panic in her voice, and she said, "Don't you worry, Pitaji. In your old age, I'll serve you and mother, and I'll teach in the same school where I learned so much. Isn't that right, ma'am?" Her teacher was also present for her wedding. She was also actually not happy with this alliance, but she was not saying anything. Probably she was waiting for Bholi to stand for herself. So when Bholi said to her father that, "Don't worry, when mother and you will grow old, I'll take care of both of you, and I am going to teach in the same school where I have learned so much." And when she addressed the teacher, "Isn't that right, ma'am?" the teacher was very happy. The teacher had all along stood in a corner watching the drama, and happily she said, "Yes, Bholi, of course. Yes, Bholi, of course you'll be teaching there, and you have shown it right now, taking a stand." And in her smiling eyes was the light of a deep satisfaction that an artist feels when contemplating the completion of her masterpiece. So the teacher was right now looking at Bholi as if Bholi was her masterpiece. Like an artist, a painter, when he makes the painting of his lifetime, feels proud. Similarly, the teacher was feeling proud on Bholi that she was the student of her lifetime. She was the person of her lifetime whom she wanted to see in all her students. So we shall learn this from this teacher student relationship, that if we have enough faith and hope and courage and confidence and affection, wonders can happen, as happened in the case of Bholi. Now let us discuss question answers from Think About It section. Bholi had many apprehensions about going to school. What made her feel that she was going to a better place than her home? Bholi had many apprehensions about going to school. She remembered how their old cow Lakshmi had been turned out of the house and sold. When she got a clean dress, bathed, and oil was rubbed into her dry hair, only then she felt that she was going to a better place than her home. Question number two: how did Bholi's teacher play an important role in changing the course of her life? Bholi's teacher played an important role in changing the course of her life. She was polite and friendly, which touched her heart. She encouraged her every time and was affectionate towards her, and said to Bholi to put her fears of not able to speak aside. The teacher transformed her into a confident person who could read, write, and speak clearly and also stand for her rights. Why did Bholi at first agree to an unequal match? Why did she later reject the marriage? What does this tell us about her? Bholi at first agreed to an unequal match because she was lucky to get a well to do bridegroom who owned a big shop, had a house of his own, and had several thousand in the bank. Not only this, the reason was, moreover, he was not asking for any dowry. Bholi also heard her mother saying that he did not know about her pockmarks and her lack of sense. If the proposal was not accepted, she might remain unmarried all her life. She later rejected the marriage because the bridegroom demanded 5,000 rupees as dowry. On seeing the father pleading and humiliated, she decided not to marry him. This tells us that she has self respect and knows what is right or wrong and is able to take a wise decision. Question 4. Bholi's real name is Sulekha. We are told this right at the beginning, but only in the last but one paragraph of the story. Is Bholi called Sulekha again? Why do you think she is called Sulekha at that point in the story? The word, read it WORD, not L. The word Bholi means a simpleton. Throughout the story, she had been a simpleton, hardly expressing her opinion. The word Sulekha means the person with beautiful sense of letters. In this story, this word has a larger meaning of being a literate, intelligent, and mature individual. After her education, Bholi has really changed to Sulekha, and her assertion during her marriage is her announcement to the world that she is no more a Bholi but Sulekha. Now, these are the questions from Read and Find Out section. You can read them and know about them on your own. This is from page number 55, Read and Find Out section. I'm giving these questions for your help so that you may prepare these questions while preparing the chapter. And this is final page number 58. Thank you all.